여기 비트코인이 7달러일 때부터 투자해 100만 달러까지 간다고 해서 웃음거리가 된 백만장자의 인터뷰를 들어보시죠. 긴 영상 끝까지 시청하시면 혁신에 투자하는 억만장자들의 공통적인 생각을 느끼실 수 있습니다.
Jason Calacanis did some kind of podcast or video about it. And I was like, oh, that's super interesting. And in 2011, I was still of the belief that we weren't kind of past the worst of the credit crisis. And so I was in bunker mode. I was like, all right, like what should I invest in?
We all were.
We all were. We were like, it can't be that easy to kind of get out of this thing. And so I started digging in, and for 6 months, I just consumed everything I could read. And at the time there wasn't a lot you could read. And I met all the people that I could meet, and there were not a lot of people to meet. And eventually, it would have been in early 2012, I said, you know what? I think that this has the potential to be world changing. And I remember thinking at the time, if I didn't have the cojones to actually do something, I would regret it the rest of my life. And so I started buying $1,000, $5,000 over Mt. Gox, and lo and behold, I bought a couple $100,000 of Bitcoin.
At what price?
Between $7 and $8, and the price, I think it went to 30, and I was like, I'm a genius, and then it fell to like 5, and I was like, all right, well, that was a waste of money. And then over the next 6 or 12 months, the price started going, I think, into like the 50s, 60s, 70s, and I was like, I'm definitely an investing genius, but I don't know if this is going to last. And so I started looking for companies that were building kind of the first generation of infrastructure to make Bitcoin useful and accessible. And so along the way, I met, Brian Armstrong, and so invested early in Coinbase, and I invested early in Chainalysis, and invested in Ripple, and a bunch of kind of the first generation of companies that were built around that time. And it's actually really funny. I was actually using Bitcoin to make a bunch of those investments. And you would think, hey, if you invested in Coinbase and you would have done really well. Had I just held on to the Bitcoin, I actually would have done better.
Because I spoke to Wences about this, and because he was one of the OGs, and I think he stuck $2 million in at $3. And he's like, I had to reassess everything I was doing because every investment I ever made was worse than my Bitcoin.
실제로 5년 전인 2020년부터 전통 자산과 위험 자산 등 모든 것을 합쳐도 비트코인의 수익률만큼 좋은 게 없는 게 사실입니다. 그에 반해 비트코인이 떨어질 때는 다른 자산들과 동일하게 혹은 비슷하게 떨어졌지만 언제나 그랬듯이 비트코인이 떨어질 때의 공포감이 더 컸는데요. 이유가 무엇일까요? 우선 제 채널에 등장한 전문가들은 대부분 비트코인을 좋게 이야기해야 하는 위치에 있는 사람들입니다. 고객 자금을 굴리고 있거나 회사 자금으로 비트코인을 구매한 사람들이 많기 때문이죠. 시장에는 정답질은 없습니다. 그럼에도 많은 투자자들은 리스크를 감수하고 돈을 벌기 위해서 비트코인 시장에 뛰어드는 것이죠. 하지만 급등락하는 비트코인 시장에서 급등과 급락을 반복하는 차트를 보고도 개인 투자자들이 욕심과 공포를 떨쳐내고 평정심과 내 자산이 우상향을 하는 것은 말처럼 쉽지가 않으실 겁니다. 저 또한 전업투자자 생활을 오래 했지만 항상 좋은 자리를 기다리고 인내해야 수익을 조금씩 낼 수 있었습니다. 그래서 저희 앤드류 트레이딩 팀에서는 어떻게 하면 일반 개인 투자자들도 투자 시장에서 수익을 낼 수 있을까? 구독자분들께 어떻게 하면 조금이라도 도움을 좀 드릴 수 있을까? 고민을 하다가 구독자분들도 비트코인이 명확하게 상승 추세가 나왔을 때만 투자를 하실 수 있게 한다면 수익이 조금 나지 않을까? 라는 생각을 하게 되었는데요. 제가 전업 투자를 하면서도 개발자로 오래 일을 했기 때문에 저도 써볼 겸 유료 결제를 해서 결국 만들었습니다. 바로 비트코인이 정말 신뢰할 수 있는 상승 추세인 건지 횡보인지 하락인지 알 수 있게 도움을 주는데요. 지금 보고 계시는 건 비트코인 차트인데요. 제가 빨간색 네모 박스로 표시해둔 곳을 보시면 주황색 61선과 파란색 121선이 교차하는 구간에서 추세가 변동되는 걸 보실 수 있습니다. 실제로 지금 비트코인은 최근에 61선과 121선이 데드크로스 하방 교차하면서 조정이 나오고 있는데요. 제가 운영 중인 앤드류 관점 채널에서는 보시다시피 2월 25일부터 제가 줄 곧 비트코인 하락 관점을 제가 말씀드리고 리스크 관리에 대해서 말씀을 드렸고 많은 분들이 도움을 받으셨습니다. 물론 데드크로스가 난다고 해서 무조건 하락하지도 상승하지도 않습니다. 저희 앤드류 트레이딩 팀에서 개발한 알파빗 지표는 약 8개의 고급 추세 기준과 트레이더들의 노하우를 담아서 차트가 상승할 확률이 높을 때 신호가 나오도록 개발을 하였습니다. 그 결과 저희 전문 트레이딩 팀 또한 판단에 도움받을 정도로 만족할 만한 놀라운 성과를 보였습니다. 시중에 유료로 팔 수 있을 정도로 가치 있는 지표이지만 저희 앤드류 채널 영상을 시청해주시는 구독자분들께는 무료로 제공해드리기로 마음먹었습니다. 저 또한 며칠 밤새 테스트하며 어렵게 만든 지표이지만 구독자분들 성원에 힘입어 저 또한 도움을 받고 있기 때문에 어렵게 공유드리기로 마음먹었습니다. 초보자분들부터 경력이 오래된 트레이더분들까지 굉장히 큰 도움을 받을 수 있는 지표라 도움이 되실 거라고 자부합니다. 신청 방법은 하단 더보기란과 고정 댓글에 나와 있으니 많은 신청 부탁드리고 이번 하락장에서 모두 잘 살아남으셔서 좋은 성적 내시면 좋겠습니다.
So we launched what ultimately became the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. So we're doing this while I'm running Second Market, and because we were buying so much Bitcoin, we set up a Bitcoin trading desk, and we started buying Bitcoin ourselves, and we started investing off our balance sheet. And I said to the board, I want to go all on Bitcoin. I was like, why don't we spin out Second Market and then we just go all in on Bitcoin? And the board said, all right, we have your support. And then NASDAQ called and said, we want to buy Second Market. So I sold Second Market to NASDAQ and then went all in. Roll the dice and we're going to go all in on Bitcoin. And that was the Bitcoin product became Grayscale. The Bitcoin trading.
Which year was this?
Would have been 2014 or so.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that became Grayscale, and then the trading business became Genesis, and then we had the investing portfolio, and I kind of basically dumped all of my angel investments, all my crypto into what became DCG.
Amazing. And then so DCG then grows to be an enormous beast because it was the access point for almost everyone, right?
Yeah, we I think we're uniquely positioned to serve as kind of a bridge between this asset class and the kind of the traditional investing market. So at the time, I mean, it was, I remember when you put out, your $1 million Bitcoin price prediction, people were like, these guys got crazy. There were very, very few. I mean, you were really one of the first ones.
That was 2013.
Yeah, and so there were very few people that were legitimate Wall Street finance people.
I don't know if I'm legitimate, but I'll take it.
Well, you were right, and so now you're legitimate. And so, because I had developed a bit of some credibility, kind of doing what I do in Second Market. When I started running around doing kind of the Bitcoin evangelism, people listened. The Tensor is building the World Wide Web of intelligence. And so the way that the Tensor works is anybody can launch what's called a subnet on top of the Tensor. And these are specific problems that are trying to be solved by harnessing the global intelligence. And so it could be compute, it could be inference, it could be data, it could be training, pre-trading. It could be, there's subnets that have been launched to predict the price of Bitcoin, to predict sports scores. And so in the way that 30 years ago, the internet, when Mosaic, when the browser was launched, and it created this Cambrian explosion of websites. Before that, you would access the internet via Prodigy and America Online, akin to today's OpenAI and Claude. The Tensor is ushering in a whole new era of openness and permissionless innovation, and it's exploding right now.
And so, who are the kind of people who are on these subnets and on the network itself? Are there people who are providing data and they're monetizing that, monetizing their compute? How do people hear about it, and what is it attracting as an ecosystem?
Well, so you had asked the question, kind of what got me excited about it, and a number of things got me excited about it. One is it's such a refreshing change to be surrounded by people who are mission-driven, ambitious, who are trying to solve the world's problems, and crypto is a mechanism to do it. But it's not all about crypto. It's not about it's not just about number go up. It's about, okay, how do we address these problems that could only be solved for by incentivizing the world to help you kind of solve these problems? And so when I met the founders, the writers of this white paper, I, like everybody, was inspired by it. That's number one. Two is, the Tensor was launched, it was a fair launch. It's just like Bitcoin. It was a white paper that was then turned into code that then launched. So there was no VC round, there were no allocations to foundations or team members. So everybody that is in the Tensor right now got there by being genuinely interested in the technology and buying or earning Tau, the token. So you have this organic community that is formed, that is mission driven, that is ambitious, that has kind of earned their way into having a seat at the table. And by the way, it has the same token economics as Bitcoin. So it's got 21 million in cap. It's got the same halving concept as Bitcoin. So it's very, very easy to understand. And what has happened over the past few months has been called an upgrade of the Tensor, where the subnets that we just talked about, each one of those subnets actually now have a token. And so people can now.
So like sort of like layer 2s.
It is, but it's not in a very important way. The distinction is every single subnet token is traded in and out of Tau. So your functional currency, your denominated currency for all the subnet tokens is Tau. So as people are trying to speculate as to which of the subnets they think are generating the most valuable intelligence, when they buy the subnet token, they're essentially indirectly buying Tau. So it's traded out of liquidity pools. So there's 88 subnets right now, and the one's launching every 2 days. So you have this community of builders, 88 different teams for the most part, who are trying to solve a problem, but they're all like joined arm in arm, because at the end of the day, if they can drive utility of the Tensor and Tau, if they can attract capital into their subnet token, it just flows into Tau. So it's two subnets may be doing the exact same thing, and one of them may just kick ass. If that subnet can bring in hundreds of millions of dollars into the potential ecosystem, and that subnet token skyrockets in value, that other subnet, their token in US dollar terms is going to go up as well because of the success of their subnets. And so it's a very collaborative community.
And it's early stage. What kind of people are in the ecosystem? Is it all kind of wide-eyed, super smart crazies where things normally start with? These people are like, oh wow, I've discovered this new. Who's in it? And what are they, I know it's relatively broad and deep. Give me an idea of how big this ecosystem is and what kind of people are involved.
For Bitcoin OGs, we are circa 2012, 2013 right now.
Yeah.
And look, if the price is any indication of kind of where it is, the price of Tau is like $200 right now.
Yeah.
So if you kind of look at like in the history of Bitcoin,
what's the market cap?
It's 1.5 billion or so.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And so you have, in the same way that the early pioneers in Bitcoin were more kind of libertarian leaning, which some people would call me and them crazy, but that was a philosophy. It's a philosophy. In the Tensor, it's really more AI crazies.
Yeah.